Hello and welcome to EMS at Sea Level, from my home to yours. Today's guest is Carl Hung, President and CEO of Season Group. Before we get into the questions, Carl, can you give me a 2-minute introduction to you and the Season Group?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I am the President and CEO of Season Group. We've been around for 45 years this year. So it's a very interesting mark to our anniversary for sure. And our facilities are worldwide in China, Malaysia, Mexico, US, and the UK. Certainly interesting times whereby this responsibility of being a CEO is much more important than ever before.
Yeah,
Where
it's interesting times, isn't it, Carl? I think that those leadership qualities are really coming to the fore and they're put under pressure right now.
Indeed, it's not just a matter of economic decisions anymore. A lot of decisions that we do make is really life and death as well too. So we're taking this job much more seriously, and with the support of my executive leadership team, we do feel quite confident now that we're heading the right direction for sure.
Yeah. So let's roll in some of the questions. Start by telling me a little bit about your experience over the last 2 or 3 months and what challenges you've seen there. And from there, we'll explore how those challenges have been overcome or mitigated.
Yeah. So we've been at the forefront of this COVID-19 situation really ever since early January. I recall actually I was coming down from our China facility on January 16th, and I received a phone call from my wife, and she was asking me, "Do you have a face mask on?" And I'm like, "What for?" And then she's like, "Don't you know what's going on?" I'm like, "All right, I'll put it on then." Like, that's when it really hit home. She's calling me to make sure I had the face mask on. So that's almost 3 months ago. So we've been battling this virus for 3 months now, and every day new challenges.
Yeah.
First and foremost was the securitization of face masks, as the Americans are now facing as well too.
Yeah.
Back in January, we knew right away face mask was the commodity that we needed, because for us, we had I wouldn't say privilege, but then the experience of SARS from 17 years ago. And it was evident 17 years ago that it was face masks that helped stop the spread. So come this time around, we wanted to make sure we secured enough face masks for not only our China facilities, but worldwide as well too. And so we were very fortunate to actually locate a very large supply of face masks, oddly enough, in Mexico.
Okay.
So it highlighted the benefit of having a global supply chain team, where our China team wasn't able to locate supplies in China because everyone in Asia was looking for face masks. So we had to be creative and looked elsewhere. We even tried our friends over in Africa as well too, but no luck. Where Mexico, we found some supply. So I think that was the first challenge that we had, just to make sure that we stop the spread of this virus, and also basic sanitization practices, even hand soap, toilet paper, paper towel. All of that stuff was difficult to procure, not because of the virus really, because people don't realize this overlapped Chinese New Year's.
Yeah.
And all factories were closed, even those that were manufacturing hand soap. So as we ramp up the production again, there was no hand soap around. So you know that we have to wash your hands more, but everyone was buying up hand soap. So we had to be creative and said, well, actually hand soap is just soap. So why don't we buy body wash instead, or shampoo? Anything that actually has soap in there, and then it works. So I think after we came to that realization, we felt a lot more comfortable, because it wasn't just the alcohol sanitization that really works. It's any soap works.
Yeah. So, and you published some handy hints on LinkedIn to your peers about what they should be doing in terms of sanitization right now, and things that maybe people aren't thinking about, like shoes and stuff being brought in from outside on your shoes.
Yeah, I think it's all these best practices. We want everyone to hear about it, because certainly the sooner that everyone practices these measures, the sooner we'll get back on our feet. The economy will rebound. So we want everyone to be doing this type of stuff. So getting rid of the germs on your shoes, alcohol spraying all your backpacks and even your clothes as you enter the office and as you go back home, showering, all that good practices we need to perform. Otherwise, even as these lockdowns are lifted, people can be bringing the germs
Yeah.
around to different places, and we just need to
Yeah.
eliminate that. And it's good to see that in Hong Kong right now, in particular, we never really went down on a massive lockdown.
Yeah.
We had controlled social distancing, and even just today, I was able to go out for lunch and buy
Yeah.
stuff, and
Yeah.
everyone else was still out because everyone's practicing these measures. So that's
Yeah.
one of the things we want to see, make sure everyone um, practices moving forward too.
Yeah, and Carl, it's interesting from your point of view because you're in Hong Kong, you've got facilities in China, you've got stuff going on in Mexico, Malaysia. How have you seen things move and change as it's worked its way around the planet?
Oh gosh, it's been interesting for sure because I was actually just in the U.S. A month ago as well too.
Mm.
So it was I spent 6 weeks in Hong Kong during the initial phases of this virus outbreak, and once we had the measures in place to control everything, and we felt everyone was safe in Hong Kong and China, then went over to San Antonio in Mexico to ensure the same thing was practiced
Mm.
over there. And the first thing we see really is so on the flight over from Hong Kong to Los Angeles, we were wearing face masks. But
Yeah.
once we got off the plane at the airport, no one was wearing face masks and everyone
Yeah.
was looking at us weird.
Yeah.
So it ended up being those 2 weeks that we were in the US and Mexico, we didn't wear face masks.
Yeah.
So that was very large contrast to lifestyle over here in Hong
Yeah.
Kong. But I see that that's changing right now in the U.S. And Mexico as well too, where everyone is trying to put on face masks if they can find
Yeah.
the face masks.
Yeah.
But from a business practice standpoint, I think even earlier on, many people had already stopped the visitations from Asian suppliers or Asian customers to the North American or European facilities already. So we were already seeing that early on in January and February, but it's even more so now where no one's allowed to visit any sites whatsoever.
Yeah.
And also even just the navigation of the government protocols as well.
Yeah.
That's been interesting for us, where it seems like most countries have taken this very seriously, which is very good,
Yeah.
but even more so than China actually did as well too. Because I think technically speaking, China was shut down for 9 business days,
Yeah.
and then we were able to open up facilities again in China.
Yeah.
Whereas every other site right now, Malaysia will be ongoing 4 weeks. The UK will be 3 weeks at minimum. So it seems like all other countries, because they didn't take the precautions early enough, now they're
Yeah.
taking extreme precautions, which is difficult, but I think it's needed to ensure that this virus doesn't spread.
Yeah, and I think with Hong Kong, like Singapore and a few other places, it was getting that social distancing in very early that allowed you to flatten that curve. And what we seem to be seeing elsewhere is that curve being allowed to rise and then action being taken, and that just makes the whole process much more difficult. So there are some real challenges out there as a result of timing, I think, and not
Yeah.
learning from what happened elsewhere, perhaps.
Yeah, timing, but also I can't blame the people either because they've never seen it and faced it
No.
before. So they don't
Yeah.
understand the severity of it,
Yeah.
where many young people would think, oh, this is only hurts elderlies
Oh,
and the
yeah.
sick. But in actuality, they've never seen this coronavirus before.
Yeah.
It's different from
Yeah.
SARS.
Yeah.
So to generalize is a very dangerous
Yeah, it is.
dangerous thing to do. So I think
Yeah.
everything, it's we preach caution over everything else,
Yeah. Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, and it's a challenge that I think there's a whole generation that hasn't seen this kind of challenge before, and that will be the case with the post-COVID-19 economic issues as well. Is your company involved in the kind of day-to-day fight against COVID with respect to equipment, with respect to consumables? Is there anything that you've redeployed in your production that's part of that challenge at the moment?
Yeah, definitely. For us, Season Group, we also have an IoT division as well, SG Wireless, and we're involved in several solutions for both the quarantining, home quarantine
Mm-hmm.
solutions right now, along with temperature monitoring solutions as well too. But in addition to that, a lot of our customers are involved in the commercial sanitization and also medical devices. So
Okay.
from our standpoint, it allows me to be willing to ask our employees to come back to work.
Yeah.
Because certainly it's not just for the economic benefit of the company.
No, it's
really
important
it's for the betterment of the entire world that we produce the products that we're doing right now too.
Yeah, and are you seeing, I think it's interesting when you look at that redeployment process. A lot of people talk about the fact that it's quite hard for governments to connect supply and demand and make that connection between, a requirement for ventilators. Do you go to Ford? Do you go to 3M? Do you go to GE? Do you go to an EMS company, which makes more sense to me because you're used to making lots of different products. Are you seeing people come to you with unusual requirements, and are you being asked to stand up products really quickly?
Unusual, yes, but I think it's creative. A lot of creative requirements where using different technologies to try to make face masks, for example. And certainly for us, we're trying to entertain all of them, even if it's pie in the sky, because it's not only life-saving, but it's also really puts a purpose to our team members to show up to work, running the long hours as one. So none of them are complaining about the long hours because, this stuff really does help save people. So,
so take a shot.
We're willing to take a shot in all those.
Yeah, no, I think that's really valuable. And I think that there is this creativity, there's this level of collaboration that's happening right now. And this kind of idea that, let's get this done for the common good, but let's, keep people safe while we're doing it. When you look at the short, medium, and long term for your company, for your business, how do you see that? Because in the short term, we're dealing with the urgent. Medium term, we've got to deal with the important. But after that, it's all a bit loose and unclear.
Yes, certainly. I think short term will be difficult for everyone. I don't think there's a single company aside from the face mask manufacturers right now that will be healthy from a short-term standpoint. So it's a matter of trying to do whatever is possible to satisfy all of our partners and all of our stakeholders in the short term. And I feel that from that standpoint, a lot of companies will be faltering in the short term, just because it's natural that in times of fear, people will be more conservative, whether it's payment cycle, etc., and new projects and investment standpoint as well too. So when that happens, all activity will slow to a crawl. So this will have a chain effect all the way down to the lower end of the supply chain as well too. So usually it's those companies that are most fiscally conservative that can survive these downturns. So from our standpoint, we've had 45 years of experience where we've survived many downturns. And one of the things is we've learned how to survive throughout these downturns. And every single time afterwards, we've actually grown as a result of that. Because as certain companies falter, their places in the supply chain needs to be replaced. And oftentimes they'll come to a company that has the longevity as well too. So right now we're being conservative with our growth right now in our capital deployment, but certainly we're preparing ourselves for the uptick in the economy when it does happen, so that we can satisfy our customers' needs for ramping up production, because that will occur.
And do you see that as being something that, it's very hard to predict, and I'm not going to ask you to predict, but if the fundamentals of the economy going into this crisis were good, then those fundamentals remain when we come out, with the exception of those industries that are damaged by the crisis. And, I think airlines is one of them. I certainly wouldn't want to have shares in a cruise ship company at the moment. So there are certain industries that are going to suffer. One of the things I heard recently from a consultant in Germany was that he'd predicted already that 30% of the EMS companies in Europe would disappear in the next 10 years. He thinks that may come into 2 years, because anybody that wasn't going to make it 10 years in a normal market probably isn't going to make it out of this crisis or make it through the next 12 to 24 months. Do you see that being the case elsewhere?
Yeah, certainly. I think any area where there's companies are over leveraged, that will change completely. Where although capital is so cheap right now, but the ability to actually pay them off, even if it's interest free, someone needs to pay for it. Countries can't keep on printing money to spur the growth, and eventually it has to stop. So I think every single country right now, they have over leveraged companies, and certainly those will falter. Because EMS, as you know, it's a very slim margin business. To be able to afford to pay the 3, 4, 5% interest rates, it's very overbearing for a lot of the EMS companies. So I think in the long term wise as well too, the supply of EMS companies will decrease, and perhaps as a result of that, margins will return to a more normal state. Maybe that's me being optimistic, but
well, we've got to be optimistic. We've got to we've got to hope for the best, because actually optimism is part of the process of coming out of any crisis. And it seems the governments are all prepared to print as much money as they can and throw as much money at it. So that makes it different to previous recessions, but previous depressions where they took a lot longer to invest. You've got a huge number of staff all around the world, most of them, I guess, in lockdown. How's the team coping right now? How are they managing to communicate, keep some spirit together, keep themselves moving forward in this tricky time?
Well, actually, most of their team right now is in China, and they're all up and running right now. So from that standpoint, in terms of keeping everyone uplifted, we've been living through this containment for more than 2 months now, since Chinese New Year's, and I think the lifestyle that they live, it's not much different from before, because we've always had long working hours in China in particular. So it's usually into the office and out, and rest, shower, clean clothes. I think there's a lot more cleanliness involved than before. They're a lot more busier cleaning their dorms and cleaning their clothes than before. But certainly, I think internet bandwidth has been used to the max more than ever, because you can actually physically see your family for a long time. So everyone's referring to WeChat or WhatsApp or Zoom around the world, and watching the television much more so than before. So I think that the major concern that most people have is, I think, in terms from a mental health standpoint, but also the physical health standpoint, because I think I've definitely put on weight throughout these last 3 months for sure.
Yeah, it's hard to get out. It's hard to get out and do some exercise. And what about the management team, the business development team? I guess you're using kind of these Zoom meetings and this kind of stuff. We got used to using this stuff as a backup when we couldn't travel, and it now becomes the main method of face-to-face communication. This isn't the first time you and I have spoken in the last few days, and it just seems to have become very natural.
Yeah, so certainly even seeing my kids on Zoom all the time, that's the weirdest part of it, when they're 6 and 4 and they're all used to Zooming. So from our business standpoint, it's different from others, because hardware is always difficult to manage remotely. I think hardware is a collaboration where you have to be with each other, and have meetings in close proximity and see each other's faces as well too. So from our standpoint, it's more difficult than other industries, and that's why even in our Hong Kong offices, even during the early stages of the virus, when I had told everyone to work from home, they all showed up at the office, because they just felt they couldn't really work from home because they can't talk to one another properly. So, but from our international site-wise, we've always been used to the using Zoom and Microsoft Teams as well too, and it's a matter of more closely discussing each other, and also setting the priorities each day and each week for the team, so that we're all aligned, because we're not seeing each other in person. So it's more important that alignment is there.
Yeah, and those meeting tools and those management tools become even more important. And you mentioned your kids at home. What are you guys sitting at home watching? What are you binging on Netflix, Stan, Apple TV Plus, all of those things?
Well, even before this virus started, I think Korean culture was taking a major role throughout the entire world right now. So two of the major shows on most popular Netflix right now is something called Kingdom. So I fully recommend that. It's a Korean zombie action thriller on season 2 right now. So you can watch it all in 12 hours. But I've actually rewatched it twice already. So that's 24 hours there. And so another one, it's a love drama called Crash Landing on You. but also a Korean drama too.
Okay.
So it's good. You get to learn another culture. So
Yeah.
that's been nice. Yeah.
Yeah, and people are doing different things. People are at home. They're learning languages. They're
Yes.
doing new things. And I think one of the fascinating things in terms of an anthropological point of view is how this changes life for people. How we as humans adapt. We are very adaptable as a species. How do we adapt, and what things don't go back? Do we go back to the movies? I know cinemas have opened in China and they've had very, very low attendance, and people don't want to go back, and movie directors are avoiding launching films. So
Yeah.
some industries will change. I think there's some fascinating dynamics going there.
Yeah. I'm really hoping. One of the things I do see is that I certainly been a lot more closer to all of my family, whether it's the
Yeah,
close family or extended family as well too. We're all taking care of each other. We're asking, oh, do you have a
yeah,
face mask? Do you have someone deliver food for you? We're more
yeah.
caring as a result of this, and certainly don't want to lose that when we
No,
come out of this virus as
absolutely.
well too.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
you see on the see outsider as well. Most people usually are stuck on their iPhones or the laptops, but now everyone's trying to get outdoors. When
yeah,
there's sun, they're trying to get outdoors, be more active when they can, and hopefully
yeah,
that continues too. Because it's
yeah.
certainly um, we need to take the positives out of this as much as we can.
Yeah, yeah. Get out, leave your devices at home, and just kind of absorb nature. And actually, I think be grateful for it, because we don't
Indeed.
we don't we don't get to enjoy it as much as we should. Before we go, I want to allow people to have a few takeaways. So, what kind of key bits of advice would you give to your peers, fellow CEOs in the EMS industry right now? What would be the key things that you've learned through this experience that you could share?
Good question. And again, it's something I juggle with all the time, where I think even before this, corporate social responsibility was a very, very big topic. How much of it is a matter of economic benefit, and how much of it is your workers' livelihood and safety as well too. And I think this virus really highlights the fact that you need to take care of your workers
Hmm.
first and foremost. That's the key item as well too. And how can you actually go to bed at night if you send them into a dangerous work
Yeah,
environment? I think
yeah,
we as CEOs need to feel that for us to for us to send someone into a work environment, we ourselves need to be willing to go into that work environment.
yeah,
And that's why I've got a lot of respect for Governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, because he always said, I won't send you to any place I wouldn't go. And
yeah,
I applaud that, and that's the attitude that we as CEOs need to do too. And that's why I'm fully confident to have all of our workers back at work now, because the practices that we put in place, it's there. And I wouldn't risk my own life, nor would I risk my own family's life if I didn't
yeah,
feel that it's safe what we do. And the key is face mask and washing hands.
yeah.
Those two combined, it's vital. And I hope the naysayers about the effectiveness of face masks would try to follow the science behind it.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things. If you wear a face mask, what harm can it do? If it can have a positive impact, there's definitely no unpleasant side effects that are going
Yeah.
to that are going to cause a downside. They're not expensive, they're not damaging. But what you say is really interesting. Those hundreds of people that work for you, they're part of your extended family, but they're also the season group's biggest asset.
Indeed.
They're key to your future success and how you come out of this
Yeah.
crisis. So super important. Carl, thanks so much for your time and your candor. It's been an absolute pleasure to chat. Look forward to chatting again soon, and thank everybody for watching and listening to us, and look forward to seeing you next time on EMS at Sea Level. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Stay safe.